June 21st is World Yoga Day, or International Day of Yoga, which was declared by the UN. So, what is it that we call yoga? Well, most people, when they think about yoga, they think about all the positions, postures, you know, twisting yourself in different ways. But when we come to it, there is really no difference between yoga and God. All right, okay, I get it. Let me explain. When we talk about yoga, we are not talking about the process. The process is also yoga, is a part of yoga. What we're really talking about, though, is the oneness of creation, of existence. So when we refer to yoga as a human being, we're talking about an alignment with that which is the oneness life. So if your body and mind and energies and your emotions are aligned in a certain way, like with what is here right now, the nowness or the beingness, the oneness of life, then we say you are in yoga. So at the same time, what we call God, on if you look at it from the perspective of creation, we're talking about the source of creation. So everything comes from the same source. So there is a oneness. When we talk about the intelligence of nature, the natural intelligence or life intelligence or existence, there is a oneness. Everything which exists is here right now. So what is there right now? It's all there is. It's always been and always will be. In other ways, the energy is already aligned with that which is, with the existence, with beingness. But our mind, our body, because there's some pain in the body and there is some, you know, ideas in the mind, identification in the mind, it takes us away from the beingness, the oneness. So to bring this about, there is different tools. So when you are in this beingness, this oneness, there is no resistance. When there is no resistance, you're naturally joyful. You naturally loving. See, hate and anger and any other negative emotion, let me say, can only happen where there's resistance to reality. Anything which is real, if we have to say that God is real, He has to be here and now. And in a way to understand it, where the idea of God comes from, is if you look at life, like imagine many, many years ago, or millions of years ago, before there was these instruments to know what's in the sky, what's out there. We look at the stars, you know, we might see, okay, maybe in some way we created this. And then you look at the ground and the mountains, and you look at it and you're like, wow, I don't know. We can build like pyramids, maybe like, let's say 2,000 years ago. But I don't think we're capable of building these mountains and all this. And then you look at the ocean and you're like, okay, I don't even know how to make water. So there has to be something bigger than me. Even if you look at your own body, like the breathing is happening, the body is healing itself. Even the very idea that we come from an egg being fertilized, there is an intelligence there, which, in such a, if you look at the size of sperm, it's so tiny, but it has that much intelligence because there is a law, there is an intelligence which is governing it to get to where it needs to get to. So if you experience This oneness, we say you are in yoga. So, what does that have to do with Jesus? See, Jesus sat down for 40 days and 40 nights, it says. Let's say for a very long time. Or he stayed in the desert for a very long time. How many people can actually sit for a few minutes? If you call yourself a Christian or in whichever way, you have to look at it. It's no simple thing that someone can sit for or stay in a place for a long time without knowing something about how this life works. To go to the point where he will say something that I don't need food because man shall not live on bread alone, or all this belongs to my Father. To come to that realization where you say, I and the Father are one, there has to be a level of attention. For you to be able to pay attention on that level, on that dimension, it needs a enormous amount of energy, which cannot really happen if you're distracted. If there's so many things in your mind, you think so much of yourself, and you have so much pain in the body, you don't know how to manage your body, then it is very unlikely that something like that will happen. So that's why we say Jesus is a yogi, because in some way we see that he has grown beyond the need for survival. He's not so heavily identified with the survival process. How much we spend on survival, going to school, learning all these things just to make a living, and doing so many other things just to survive. And if you have to know something bigger than yourself, how much attention does it need? So, some people will say, well, Jesus was a prophet, or a messenger, or a savior. So let's look at it. Once you have experienced the oneness, or yourself as the oneness, or that which we call the divine, or God, you're not a messenger. It's not like you're predicting life, as prophets do. It's that you are the message of what is possible, how to reach that possibility of being human, a human being, beingness. You become a message. So for me, there is no difference, whatever excuse you want to use to know that dimension that we call God, which is the highest intelligence of life, in my perspective, then you have to know the way. And the way, as Jesus says, I am the light and the way. It's a tool. The road is a tool. So when it comes to tools, there's people who have given tools. Because of his situation and the place where he lived, Jesus was not able to provide the tools as well as he could have. So he preached faith. Faith means you have no ideas of your own. Because any idea that you have, if you have an idea of God, the questioning will always be there. The doubt will always be there. But when you go beyond doubts, we say you're in faith. So beingness is to be in faith. In so many ways, he was a great example on how to live. And there's been many examples. When he was here, he said, I will come back. Because in the Middle East, for another person to come back, to come, was not so, because if you come in the Middle East, people were killed. John the Baptist was killed. Jesus was, killed or crucified. So in the Middle East, Muhammad came. He said, I am the last prophet. I'm the last messenger. In that area, in that part of the world, it was like that. For another person to come like Muhammad, it would have been like nearly impossible. So he said, I'm the last one, or whichever way. But in some places, like in India, there has been so many people. You have Buddha, you have Krishna, you have Mahavira, you have Ram, you have Adiyogi. So many have given tools, and the tools of Adiyogi are the most significant. When you say Adiyogi, we are talking about the first yogi. So the first person who was able to know his oneness with the creation, or in some way to realize his true nature. So he gave some tools, 114 or 112 ways to know yourself. Of this, there's some postures which have been like, you know, done in so many ways when what people see as yoga today is a part of that. So Adi Yogi gave so many tools. We talk about Agastya Muni. He gave so many ways, which are tools, methods. If you have to get somewhere, you use the way. You have to use, like, you can call it a method also. The way can also be the method or the tool to get there. If you have to walk through the bush, it's so much work. But if you know the way, if you have a road, then it makes it so much easier. So a guru or a teacher, a master is the way, is a tool, is a way of knowing, is a message. But for us to see that message is not always possible because we are not on that level that he doesn't need to say anything. Like he can just, he's shining already. But just by looking at him, we cannot know. We cannot know how he is. We cannot realize just by looking at him. So he has to talk. So then it's like we're looking at it as the message. As he's giving the message, so he must be the messenger. But he's only a messenger because we are not able to grasp that which he represents, the beingness that he represents. One such being, for me, is not something that you have to believe, but you must be open if you really want to know. As they say,
And now yoga.
you have to go through so many things, realize that this is not the way. Like if you have to be joyful, you can try so many things like alcohol, sex, drugs, money. Then if you get to a point you see this is not it, then it's time for yoga. So for me, the person who has brought this possibility is Sadhguru. And he has so many tools. And in a big way, he's one of the biggest reasons, he's the biggest reason why we have International Day of Yoga. So in an attempt to touch the world with spirituality, at least bring some spirituality on some level to the world, he has given himself in so many ways, in sacrificing his body, in giving up his time, using his energies to attempt to touch the world. So I beseech you to take this opportunity and explore the tools which are there. If you go to Sadhguru app on your phone or sadhguru.org, there are so many tools there which you can use to know yourself, your nature, to realize your beingness. At least try. So much attention you have given to survival. At least give some attention to being, to your being. At least try and see how to be. Be part of the silent revolution that we call yoga. Because If you don't go this way, in so many ways, you'll be lagging behind. Many people will be going through life so smoothly while you're still struggling. Do yourself a favor. Namaskaram.
The religions of the past were described as the opium because they were putting people to sleep. So yoga, pursuit of spiritual process will not work as a sedative for the population, but will act as an invigorating force. If you still believe that by getting married or unmarried, your life will become fulfilled, not a time for yoga. If you believe if you get some money or wealth, your life is settled, not a time for yoga. If you believe if you build a new home or buy a new car, life will be fulfilled, not a time for yoga. If you know all these things make some convenience happen in our life, but doesn't really transform us in any way. If you understand this one thing, time for yoga has come. Not the twisting, turning yoga that's becoming popular there. Real yoga means to obliterate the boundaries of your individuality. And now yoga, time has come.
Shambho, Shambho.